Hi everyone, welcome to another video in our Understanding Colour series. I'm pretty sure this is video number 5, but we are well into this now and I'm slowly losing track. Anyway, today I wanted to share with you kind of the basics of colour theory that I learnt during my degree. I'm not going to go over all of it, I'm just going to show you kind of what's inspired the beginnings of this project we're doing now. So I graduated from my textile design degree in 2010. Which I can't believe is like nearly 15 years ago now. Anyway, as part of our design process, obviously we had to learn how to use colour, and this was one of the books that we learnt from, and it was this book that opened my eyes to the fact that you could actually spend an entire lifetime researching, exploring and experimenting with colour and the colour relationships, how colours work together, how they bounce off each other, how it plays on the eye and how the brain interprets colour. It's absolutely fascinating. So hopefully you can see these pages all right. I've turned off one of my overhead lights to kind of stop the shine from the pages. But for example, here you can just about see this kind of grey and the purpley here versus this, what seems like a very deep dark grey. Anyway, when we put certain colours next to each other, it changes the feel of them and it changes how we perceive them. So for example, here, this looks like a different grey to this up here. Equally, this pink kind of looks more vibrant compared to this one, or it does to me anyway. So it's really interesting how our eye perceives it. This is a great one with the blues. So we've got this, what looks like a really bright blue here, the bright blue rings, versus a darker blue in the squares, and they're actually the same blue. So you can see that using this blue next to this more orangey red makes it appear more vibrant compared to this deeper, darker burgundy red and the dark blue. So this is what's really fascinating to me, is that relationship that colours have to one another. So if we look through here, so what we did in my degree, we had to choose an artwork, say it was like a Picasso piece or Van Gogh, something like that, and pull out some of the colours that the artist used, and then we'd make swatches like this and kind of just like this really, like we've been doing, and then we'd cut them up in different ways and layer them together to see the relationship. So for example, can you see here this lilac colour with the red versus the lilac colour with this, it's kind of an ivory colour, but it completely changes the feel of the piece as well as how our eye perceives it. Anyways, we go through, this was the sort of thing we did as well. So just really simple, abstract, cutting out colour. All these colours here are the same. So this really vibrant looking orange is actually the same as this orange and the same as this. And it's just because it's sat next to the green, it makes it pop. So when I was talking about our complementary colours on the colour wheel and looking kind of across the colour wheel, if we've got red and green next to each other, and then how it makes it pop, this is what I meant, and how we can use that to our advantage to make something really stand out. Whereas if we're using the orange just next to other yellows and things, it kind of blends in a bit more. Again, this is the sort of thing we did. We just painted block colour, cut it up into swatches, and then layered the swatches in different proportions over each other. And again, you can see here, like the red up here next to this pink seems really bright and almost like an orangey red, versus the red down here, which seems really dark next to this khaki green, but they're actually all the same red. So this is why it's so important to kind of be mindful about the colours you're using, and the colours you're using next to each other can completely change the feel of a colour. Anyway, there was a specific page I really wanted to show you. This book's great, it's got loads of examples. This is the sort of thing as well here, which we did. And again, if you look in the centre, this looks like a really bright and vibrant kind of ochre colour, and this looks like a dark brown. But they're actually the same colour. So if I wonder if this will work on here. almost. I can't quite do it, but I'm not cut it out quite right. But yeah, so these are actually the same colour, but because of the colour that's around it, this is why it completely changes how our mind picks it up. This is also interesting when you think about like framing your work. So this is why work is usually framed with white around the edge, because it just lifts everything else. So if we look here, again, we've got some very similar, like a purple and a brown. And can you see here, this almost feels like a completely different brown to this. Equally, this purple feels completely different to this purple. It's just so interesting to me. Here, like this feels green to me, but it's actually the same colour as what this looks like, and this looks grey. Very clever how it does this. So anyway, I really wanted to show you this. So this page here, we've got the same orange swatch here. You can see I've blacked out everything else with my white page. So all you can see is what's there, those two, exactly the same orange. But when we pull this out here, it looks so different. So if you have a look there, this looks like the same orange as this. And your brain does that because of all this blue around it, which again is the opposite colour on the colour wheel. If we look here, we've got blue and orange. It makes this look so much more vibrant and pops, and it looks the same colour as this. It's so clever. Whereas this is the same as this. This looks like a really dark, kind of murky orange next to our orange and our yellow, but it's the same. So yeah, really fascinating to me, like how that works. There it is again, so we can see it's the same orange. Really clever. So I want to move on to an artist that I think explores colour really well, and that is ROTHKO. And I mean, I don't know masses about his work, but I just find it so inspiring that it basically became colour swatches like this. And even though they're not as kind of exact, he's, you know, just paints block colour over and over and over itself. These are such a great example of how colour works together. So it's exactly the same principle. So for example, here adding in this black is that contrast that just lifts all of these warm colours, and just how he plays around with colour. And the thing that really inspires me about his work is how he uses similar colours. So for example, all these different kind of reds and oranges, and layering them together and the relationship they have, and it's about the feel of it. I think his work is very emotive. There's something really emotional that colour kind of brings out of you. And I noticed this when I look through this book, like this looks quite happy and vibrant to me, whereas this looks quite dark, and there's almost something a bit like a womb about it. Again here, vibrancy, and yeah, layering things up. So he's still got this touch of yellow coming through here, which looks so bright compared to this, but it's actually the same base coat, and he's just painted over the top here. But because it's next to the blue, it's got this real zingy pop compared to what looks like quite dark up here. Equally here as well, just layering very similar colours. So this is something I'm really interested in my work, is using a lot of very similar shades and layering them together to see how it works. Again, look at the feel of this. This just seems quite dull. It reminds me of concrete and like an urban, desolate landscape to me. And again, that's totally my mind and my emotion picking up on that. And I think that's what's so fascinating about colour. So for example, here, I think these are great because they're very similar layout. So you've got the big chunk of colour here, the thin lines of colour here, and a big chunk of colour here, and again here, and how different these two feel. So especially with this lovely blue here, so beautiful. It really makes this, what otherwise would be quite a deep, dark, murky orange, really lift. It looks really beautiful, and especially it's almost, I think it's actually a dark green around the background here, but it looks black. So clever. And compared to here, which is this line down the middle is almost like the dark accent, but it's not very dark at all. And again, just how these different layers pop together. So it's got a really, really light layer of yellow there next to a very almost khaki greeny layer of yellow. And just the feeling that you get from it. And then if I flick through, yeah, this one. So this is about kind of composition. So these are basically the same composition, and they're just coloured completely differently. So again, when you're thinking about making your artwork, the colours you use make a difference, and you can play around with so many different colourways for the exact same composition, and it will give the composition a different feeling depending on what colours you use. And I just find that so fascinating. So again, you've got the large space, the little stripe down the middle, and a larger space, and similarly here. And this is really warm, inviting, comforting, and this is quite dark and deep. And again, there's a lot of emotion that comes up with looking at these two different pieces. So inspired by these, oh, I just want to show you these as well. This really almost, I mean, I would never work with these colours, and again, that's what fascinates me. This real dark, kind of underground almost feeling, this deep, really earthy tones, something I would not normally use in my work, but again, it's so emotive. So yeah, this is a really fun book to kind of flick through and appreciate the brilliance of what is quite a simple, you know, it seems simple, these artworks, but they're not. They're so complex in the way that colours are working together. Okay, so I also want to show you some of my favourite artists and just have a look at how they use colour in their work. I think it's so interesting to kind of see how other people approach these things. Anyway, this is Flora Bowley. I absolutely love her work. She's an intuitive painter. She layers up a lot of acrylic. She does massive canvases. Let's see if we can find, yeah, she'll paint with her hands, she'll paint with found objects. This is the sort of thing she does. Very emotive. Again, this is what I mean about abstract colour work can be so emotional and really brings up a lot of emotion. But yeah, it's interesting to see here the colours she is using. So you can see the contrast. So we've got lights in here, look, with darks. Dark here next to the light tree. So that really works well, doesn't it, to draw your eye in. But equally, you've got kind of this pale minty colour here and the blues here, but you've got this almost golden colour on top. So again, this was kind of what we were looking at here on our colour wheel of like the blue versus the orange. So here, so you've got here a little tinge of orange there, a little bit of orange there. So she's very much using these accent colours to enhance her work. Again, up here you've got lots of turquoises, darks, and then you've got the light and the orange, which sit opposite on the colour wheel. So it's really interesting. Even though all these layers are being built up, all these things are going on behind. So again, lots of pale yellows in here, but you've also got this lilac colour. So again, that's kind of opposite on the colour wheel. We've got here violet and yellow. So complementaries are showing up there. Again, we've got lots of lights with darks poking through. So again, looking at that kind of contrast that we've got going on. Pinks and greens, not pinks and greens, pinks and blues, which is like my favourite combination, pinks and blues. So again, pinks and sort of blue, so almost opposite on the colour wheel. But again, turquoises in here, beautiful turquoise with pink. So again, you're more here and here. So yeah, really interesting, these colours. Loving this, look, white and the pink, and then that really dark outline as well. So yeah, interesting to see the contrast that's going on. Let's see. I think right at the front she's got some other ones. This one's a lovely one. And again, you can see the contrast of like light areas with dark areas. So just think about where the eye is pulling you in. So for me, it's these light areas, it pulls me in here. Again, you've got accents here with the light and the dark. But again, look at this, so almost reddish pink. And then you've got the greens in behind. And this is happening everywhere. Turquoise with red on the top, surrounded by the orange. So very much looking at complementaries here. Sometimes it's just an accent, so like the white there. The white over the dark, so that's a nice contrast. Again here, white over the dark, so that's interesting to look at. And again, that's the sort of thing I use in my mandala orbs with the black and white drawings. But yeah, very much here as well. Look, we've got the green leaf here, but it's an orangey centre. So again, we're looking at kind of greens here and the orange here. So almost opposite on the colour wheel. Very much so here though with the pink. Pinks and purples here, greens over here. So yeah, really interesting, and it just makes it such an interesting, dynamic, full painting. I think it's beautiful just how the colours work together. And very abstract forms, so you can tell this is a person, you can tell these are leaves or flowers, but very abstract forms. So that's Flora Bowley, who I love. Let's have a look. This is a local artist to me, so Kurt Jackson. He's based in Cornwall on the most westerly point almost over in Pendine, and he does a lot of abstract landscapes, and I've done a lot of what I call inner landscapes previously, so again just using kind of colour really, and mine are always a bit more fluid, so you don't have a exact horizon line. But again, just flicking through these, and it's the textures I love in his work. Lots of splatter going on. Again, it's mixed media, very abstract. And here you could quite easily see it's like greens and blues. But then when you do look a bit deeper, you see this red here, the red and the very faint orange. So you've got greens and blues are kind of over here. And then you've got this dark red here and the light oranges, so again they're opposite on the colour wheel. And if we just take a look at this, so I'll try to, so yeah, so if we just take a look at this picture here, really beautiful use of colour. But if I cover over the red, can you see how it changes the dynamic? It almost makes it look a bit flatter. Whereas having that in, it just lifts everything, and it does draw the eye in. And again, you've got this difference in the dark and the light, so this contrast, which is interesting, isn't it? So the horizon is probably the darkest thing in the picture, which does draw your eye back, but you're almost led up through the painting by the details here in the foreground. You've got this punchy orangey red, and then it draws you up into the horizon. And the rain. Can you feel like that's rain? So yeah, really interesting how he uses colour. Again, there's a lot of umbers, oranges, but this is a greyish blue. So again, they complement each other. We've got blues on this side, oranges on this side. And then down here, even like flecks of green. Just really nice, and lots of very expressive marks. So just beautiful mark making and layering things up. So let's keep moving through. Again, look, blue with accents of yellow, bit of orange. So you're drawn into here. So it's this, everything's blue and green, really blue. And then where the figure is, you're drawn to her face, but what draws you in, not only is the contrast, you've got this really dark here, probably the darkest bit of the painting here, and the lightest bit here, but you've also got this orange and red here. So it draws you straight into this, your eye is pulled into there, and then you end up looking around. But yeah, this contrast, because without it, it looks like a very different picture. So I'm just going to flick through a few more of these. This is beautiful. And it's just subtle. Sometimes it's quite subtle. So we've just got a really subtle kind of sandy colour here. But these kind of yellows and oranges are still opposite sort of blues, which is what's here and even here. There's almost a slight lilac-y feel to this as well. So again, yellow is opposite the violet here, yellow and purple. So this kind of slightly purpley grey, which is here as well, and this is the more yellowy down here. So very subtle, it doesn't need to be punchy colours. But yeah, beautiful. I love this. Look at this zingy green up here. And again, you're just drawn straight in, aren't you? Not so obvious contrasting colours here, but they're very monochromatic. I would say almost lots of browns and greys, apart from this really almost neon colour, which draws you right in. So that's an interesting use of colour, isn't it? So let's have a look at one of his different books. Again, it's like the orange up here, draws your eye in. Wow, very expressive. Sorry that the light is glaring on these. Let's pull this up a bit. So again here, yellow and that orange in the centre, surrounded by the green fields. Really beautiful work, very suggestive. So yeah, lots of sea ones here, that's nice. One more punchy orange, love that. And again, it's lots of speckles in there, and writing as well, I quite like that, the use of writing. But you've got the blue and the orange there opposite each other on the colour wheel. Here again, your eye's straight away drawn into this, isn't it? So you've got the blue that's almost lilac-y, and then this beautiful, almost like lime green with the oranges there. Absolutely stunning. And again here. So yeah, really nice use of colour. Just very inspiring. That's what I love about looking at other people's work. Very inspiring. How they use their materials, how they layer things up, even their compositions, perspectives on things. That's quite nice, that night scene. Again, using contrast, so that's something to think about as well, isn't it? Darks and lights. And this is also another artist I want to show you, David Mankin, who is, again, a Cornish artist. I went to his recent exhibition in Penzance. That's where I got this book from. So a lot of the works in here, I think, were in the show. But yeah, again, abstract, gorgeous use of colours. Not so much obvious complementary. Well, there is actually when you look. So if you look here, there's a tiny little box with orange. Little flecks here of orange and pink. But first of all, you're mainly drawn into the blues and greens. There's like this beigey colour here. I love the line work as well. Expressive line work in this. But down here, actually, there's this dark orange. So that's really interesting. This one here as well. So pale, really pale oranges, beigey colours. That warmth. Again, he'll just use a little outline look of the orange, but it's mainly blues and turquoises. Gorgeous. What else have we got in here? Gorgeous little orange patch there. So yeah, I just find it so fascinating. And you can see both these artists I've just shown you are abstract artists, but their work is so different. Okay, both are working in lots of blues and greens. That's what I love about art. There's always room for you and your art because everyone expresses things differently. Love these little bits peeking through. Love the idea of doing lots of layers and then hiding a lot of it over quite a simple oval top layer. Look at this. Gorgeous orange accent amongst all this blue and green. Absolutely gorgeous. Again, quite subtle colours. Little bit of orange here. That's pulled in here. This is nice. That zingy green, yellows, oranges kind of pushed back in the background, but this is what's kind of coming to the front. What else have we got? Yeah, I love these. Absolutely beautiful. Look, use of line work there. It's the simplest thing ever. 2 little lines, but it creates that contrast again of dark and light. And even though they're both greens, just beautiful. Absolutely stunning. So yeah, really, really fun. This is why it's really important to go to exhibitions, go and see other people's work, go and see what other people are doing. It's so inspiring. Sometimes it can spark an idea for your work, especially if you're feeling stuck. Maybe it gives you an idea to try something different. So like here, all this kind of pen or pencil line, really loose pencil line would be a really fun thing to bring into abstracts. Really, really fun. These are nice as well. Even this idea of doing lots of miniature abstracts, almost like little thumbnail tests. Really gorgeous, gorgeous, gorgeous. Again, you've got in here orange and blues, orange and blues, orange and greens. Really lovely. So yeah, I think it's all about exploration, trying things out, seeing what works, seeing what doesn't, seeing what you like, seeing what draws your attention in. So you don't always have to like it, but it might draw your eye, whereas, because this has actually created quite a lot of kind of plain negative space, and all the detail is in a few sections, and that's what helps to draw your eye in and lead your eye around the page. So composition is something that I'd love to study more as well. I don't know a lot about composition, to be honest. Again, that's something else to play around with. Really beautiful. So anyway, I hope you found this inspiring. I'm now going to show you a few little experiments that I've been doing in my sketchbook. Okay, so I've got my colour sketchbook here. I want to just show you a couple of experiments based off of this. So I've been looking at like an overall colour palette, noting down my supplies. This was very much blues and purples, so looking at this section of the colour wheel and then trying to find an accent. So I've used, initially I used a really bright orange, but I don't think it really worked properly. So this more pale yellow I pulled in here, and it just kind of lifts everything, especially this warmth here. I think without it, it looks very different. Like these all would really work together well, and then this punchy orange just makes everything else sing and come alive. So that was an interesting palette that I played with. And also this one, so again inspired by the idea of having like blues and greens, but to be honest this is more greens and yellows, I would say. So here, but I've got bits of blue in here, and then I've got, so I'm kind of along this section here, and then I've got quite a punchy orange, this, literally this colour here. And again, this really lifts it, so it kind of goes a bit more browny here. I've got pinks in here as well, so pinks opposite these. But yeah, so even just without that, I mean, you can still notice these pinks here, but there's something about, especially this line here, really bright and draws your attention in. So anyway, this is what I'm playing with at the minute. I really feel like I have learned so much doing this recent colour series, just playing around with colour, trying to become more confident with colour, how I use colour. Really, really loving the outcomes that I've been getting. So I'm just going to explore making more mandala orbs, playing a lot more with colour over the coming weeks, and I will give you an update in a few weeks' time. So I hope you've enjoyed this. Thank you so much for watching. I hope your colour experiments are going well. Let me know in the comments below what you think or what you've been learning about colour, and I'll see you very soon. Lots of love. Bye.